Welcome to Grawlix Nights, the Grawlix Podcast live show. I'm Randy.
I'm Melanie.
And I'm Jesse.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Tonight we're going to look at some headlines. Mainly that there's soon not going to be many shows to talk about because there's a writer's strike going on. So we're going to look into that a little bit. And then there's a couple of DC related news headlines, and that's about it. Pretty light. Pretty light. But first, how are you two doing?
Doing all right. Pretty light.
Pretty light.
Yep. Feeling
Good.
pretty light. Pretty and light.
Did you go to the bathroom before we started?
I sure did. That's always going to help, you know?
It's funny, at what point does like juvenile humor then just become like old person humor? Because they're similar but different.
Right.
Kids are always about like poo jokes, and older people are like, it's not even a joke anymore. They're just like, let me tell you about my bathroom habits.
It's just my reality, yeah.
It's notable because it doesn't happen like it used to. It's not very often.
Let me tell you all about it.
Today was a good day. I went to the bathroom.
One of my favorite, what's his name? Books by that one guy. He did Slaughterhouse-Five.
Vonnegut?
Yeah, is Galapagos, and in that he talks about like basically humanity is destroyed at some point, and this is way in the future, and we're all kind of like seals, but somebody farts, and then they all start laughing, and he's like, and that's how you know they're human. So I think
that tracks, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think it really matters, how old you are or anything like that. It's just how we are.
I should read more Vonnegut. Slaughterhouse-Five is amazing. I love that book.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
And I've never read any other Vonnegut, and I don't know why. I should have.
You should. It's good.
Yeah, that has similar sensibilities at times. One of the funniest and most meta moments is where he's talking about a soldier. I think I have to change the language. So they got like diarrhea or something from eating something bad. Dysentery. I don't know. They got sick because there's war stuff, and the soldier's like, I just crapped my brains out. They're out. They're gone. I crapped my brains out, and then it's like, that's me, the writer, Kurt. That was me, or something like that. It's like, what? So,
wow.
Literally self-deprecating humor there.
Oh, deprecating or defecating?
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Okay. Anyway, hey, I'm glad there's no viewers for that yet. Hey, let's talk a little bit about what we consumed. I know there hasn't been a ton, but there's been a little bit. Jesse, before we started the stream, you'd mentioned a show that came back for another season, and I'm sure we'll talk about it lots on future episodes. But what you been watching?
We got a little bit of Sweet Tooth. I've always got a Sweet Tooth, but there's Sweet Tooth on Netflix. It's back for a second season, and so spoilers for season 1. Gus and the hybrids are captured by Abbott and his army of last men, and so that's where we're at. And it's kind of like it's a dire situation for those hybrids, and it's been interesting the first couple of episodes, and I don't know how long it is. It seems like these Netflix seasons are much shorter, like 8 episodes or whatever. But yeah, I'm about 3 or 4 episodes in, and I'm enjoying it. It's definitely different from the books, and it's so bizarre, the vibe of this show. And we mentioned it in season 1, but it carries over into season 2, where it's just like it's made for a slightly younger audience, it feels like, but it's also so dark.
Right.
Right.
Like, it's not like Negan with a baseball bat dark, but they're also just killing people sometimes. So it's like, yeah, it's still pretty dark.
Yeah.
That was, I think, one of the most common comments we had on it. You know, or not even a criticism, just like, yeah, the first season was so tonally weird, but I guess I'm glad that it, you know, that's carrying over.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's consistent. I'll give it that, you know, because it's just like, it's whimsical. It's kind of, you know, fairy tale like, and then, you know, like torture.
It's weird. It seemed like I remember us talking about the first season a lot. Did we do it episode by episode, or we did at least several episodes talking about it?
Yeah. I feel like, I don't know if we did episode by episode, but we either like binged it all or we watched it in like one or two chunks or something.
Paul says, Moose strike. Moose ain't no scab.
He's not crossing the line.
Yep. Yeah, it's. I was amused that you mentioned the episode. That'll come into play when we talk about the writer strike stuff. Is the number of episodes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a lot of show. Eight's becoming kind of normal, and that kind of sucks. It sucks for us viewers. I want more shows.
Right. I'm curious now to find out exactly how many episodes, because sometimes Netflix still has a fair number of episodes, but it just seems like in general things are going to almost 8. It's like it was 12 for a while, and now it's like 8 is the standard.
While you look that up, we mentioned last week that Melanie and I were going to go to the drive-in movie theater, the Quasar drive-in, and we did. We went Saturday night, and we seen Evil Dead Rise. And by the way, hey Paul, I don't think I properly said hi. It's good to see you here. I know you've been busy a lot lately. But we went and seen Evil Dead Rise and Cocaine Bear. A bear does cocaine.
He doesn't really do cocaine. He eats cocaine. It's not really the same.
He sniffs some. I'm pretty sure he sniffed some off a severed leg at some point in that movie.
That's true. I think he did. It's supposed to be based on a true story, but the true story is the bear died. And the movie's way better than that.
Yeah, it's based on a true story in that, like, the setup for the movie of some drug dealer guy ditching a bunch of drugs out of a plane and then dying, and a bear finding it is the setup, and I think that's the truth in the story. But then the actual movie, I think, is totally fictional. And
And?
yeah, okay, Jesse. So Sweet Tooth.
So sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
That's fine. Okay, since we're talking about Cocaine Bear, real quick, here's our mini review. Melanie, what'd you think of Cocaine Bear?
I loved it. I thought it was great fun. I like the weird little interplay they have between the characters. That's what makes most movies great, you know? Just little ridiculous things. And the stuff with the bear, well, not even just the bear. Basically, the kills in this movie, though, were like, some of them were so gnarly, man. Yeah. But I like that, so it's okay for me. I appreciated it. I don't know that other people would, though. I don't necessarily think that they needed as many characters as they had, but, like, again, still, the characters is what makes the movie fun. So that was nice.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse was talking about, you know, the tonal weirdness of Sweet Tooth. This has a heavy tonal weirdness in that it's like a quirky comedy, and all the comedy comes from weird characters, like interaction between these people. Like, everyone's just kind of a little off and a little goofy, and it is legitimately funny, I thought. So it's also, for the most part, except for the final act, which happens at night, but or the climax. It's a bright movie. It's a bright, nice looking, not super dynamic movie. It's almost shot like a comedy, but not quite that flat. Yet, there are some hardcore gore scenes. Like, there's some gruesome things that I think got more of a... Evil Dead Rise has some pretty hardcore gore in it. It's got a horrible cheese grater scene.
Ugh, yeah.
But I think Cocaine Bear had at least one scene that had me cringe more than anything in Evil Dead Rise. Like, it's so weird that it's, like, funny, and of course people are dying. There's bear attacks, but, like, it's funny, it's bright, and all of a sudden, like, crazy over-the-top gore. So it's pretty interesting in that respect.
Well, and I think part of the thing that makes it so much worse than some of the stuff from Evil Dead is in Evil Dead, there's demons killing people, messing up their own bodies and everything. You expect horribleness everywhere.
Right.
And in that, I mean, you expect to see a bear chomp on something. You don't expect to see some of the stuff you see.
Right. Right. There's some pretty surprising and at least one super outlandish kill in Cocaine Bear. Paul asked, was it fast paced? And can I say that? Was it fast paced? I think so. There are a lot of characters, but for me, honestly, like the bear scenes were pretty funny. Like, it's not something you watch. It's kind of got a horror thing since it's like animal attack movie. But it's more like, I don't know, it's just a comedy. So when you're following the characters, I didn't find it slowed down, and it doesn't seem like it dwells on any one group for a super long period of time. It bounces between characters a lot, and I felt there was a, of course, Turner, it's metal in your lungs.
And real quick, I wanted
one for some reason.
Paul said he expects that a grizzly will rip his face off. But you know what? This isn't a grizzly, which is part of the thing. It's a black bear, which normally with a black bear, you're supposed to fight back because they're smaller, I guess, and more afraid. But in this instance, that's not a good idea because this bear's on cocaine and it doesn't care.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It felt fast-paced to me. I could be wrong. We watched it in the drive-in, and, like, I can't tell. I guess if we watched a super slow movie, we've watched the first Friday the 13th, like, at least twice at that drive-in. And, yeah, that movie drags. And so, like, you can tell, but, I don't know, kind of watching it at the drive-in warps my perspective of, like, for the most part, so long as the movie keeps moving, it feels like every movie's over in 40 minutes to me.
And that was, we're not talking a whole lot, I guess, about the Evil Dead Rises, but part of that for me is they start the movies too early, in my opinion, at the drive-in. And I couldn't see a bunch of it, and then I got out of the car, and I couldn't get the radio outside the car to work, so I didn't hear. I missed the first big chunk of the movie, so that kind of messed up my viewing of it. But it was also okay. It was, gross. It was very gross.
As an Evil Dead fan, it's definitely not the best. I mean, it's not going to be the best Evil Dead. I thought it was very entertaining, but again, yes, drive-in influences. They start the movies at dusk or whatever, but like they do start a little too early. It's too bright. Fortunately, the first scene is like the one scene that happens during the day, like is a daytime scene. But even still, like it was hard to see what was going on. And then once it actually got dark outside, then the rest of the movie is all night scenes, which are just really kind of hard to see on a drive-in screen anyway, at least that one. And the freaking pickup truck ahead of us was running the whole time, and they had like running lights on. Like they were the front of their truck was faced back. And they had lights on, and they had a tarp over it. But you know what? A tarp's not thick enough. So it's basically, you've got this drive-in screen, and then like one row ahead, right in front of us, like just off to the side, but like right in our vision, are these giant blue glowing LED type lights, and we're trying to watch this super dark movie anyway. So I enjoyed the movie, but I really need to rewatch it to before I'm like, here's my star rating. But I liked what I could see.
Yeah. Paul says, as an Evil Dead fan, he has to wonder how much longer that series has legs, and I will agree because I think the reason that Evil Dead is what it is because it was funny, and when you take the funny out, it's just another horror movie kind of. It seems like.
Yeah, I will say this one. So, the Evil Dead remake, 2013, I think. I felt like was missing the funny for the most part. They went more gritty horror, and this one's an interesting mix in that it's not a comedy, but they took the aesthetic of like gritty horror and nasty, like, you know, decently budgeted gory horror movie, but they kept the camp in the way that some of the there's not a lot of deadites, but they kept the camp in how the deadites are handled for the most part. The main deadite in this is great though, definitely one of the like more memorable deadites from the series, just because there's a lot of personality still attached.
Yeah.
Her, it's like a smaller scope, so there's not all that many characters.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, but this is, I think it's more impactful here too because it's a family. It's like a mom, a sister, and her kids is what the movie focuses around. So.
Is it the same cabin? Like, are we still dealing with the Necronomicon? Like,
they're not at the cabin anymore.
Oh.
It is, or it doesn't, at least.
So okay,
not.
so
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it starts with the opening scene is really kind of like disconnected. It's got a great title card shot, but that starts at like a cabin at a lake. But then we go to the actual characters of the movie, and this seems like a very intentional choice. It takes place in an apartment building in a city.
Yeah.
oh,
And it's interesting because Melanie and I just watched another movie like this that took place in a rundown apartment where there's hardly anybody in it, but it's like, even though it's like in a city, it's isolated, and I think that's an effective setting for a horror movie. And for me, it works here. If you do something like that, Paul says Evil Dead going too gritty and not funny is like Deadpool doing Shakespeare. You'll watch it, but you won't be happy. I feel like though this is a swing towards the right direction for Evil Dead, but you have to do some legwork to make an apartment complex feel isolated. There's a throwaway line that they're going to be moving because the building is going to be demolished in like a month. So there's hardly any tenants there. There's a couple other people. And then also there's an earthquake at some point. So they're kind of stuck in this building. You have to do some legwork to trap your characters there. But I thought it was an effective setting. It actually worked. It worked well for an Evil Dead because you just track them in a confined space. And technically, a building has a little bit more of a confined space, but for the most part, you're in an apartment or you're in like tight hallways. And I thought it worked pretty well.
Yeah, and another with the apartments, it makes it so much worse though because you're on a higher floor, the elevator's out, the bad things are right outside in the hallway, and there's not a fire escape, at least not accessible. So really, it's just the one room for the most part that they're in, that they can be in for a big chunk of the movie,
And to answer your question, there's a Necronomicon. Yes.
Yes, there is a Necronomicon.
I feel like they slyly kind of expanded the lore a little bit in a interesting way, slightly more serious way, but
didn't they? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say not anything that undoes like necessarily retcons anything, but they added some stuff, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. They made it so that if they want to make more or other people want to make more, they always could. I think.
I remember not disliking the remake, or it's not technically a remake, but the 2013 Evil Dead. I remember liking it. I do think they saved all the camp in that and over the topness for the finale, which is good, but I do think that was a bit too serious. And this one still is kind of serious, but wait, didn't Jazz live in this apartment building on Fresh Prince?
In West Philadelphia. So if the thing that I thought was strange to me for any kind of a movie though is some of the people that were undeaded or whatever, they were really young. I don't know, they seemed really young to me. I was surprised.
Oh yeah, no, the movie doesn't pull punches. When 3 of your 5 main characters are kids in an Evil Dead movie, there's some kids gonna die.
Yeah,
That's a slight spoiler, but it doesn't pull punches. Anyway.
So then, I'm kind of confused because I haven't seen the remake, the not remake. So this would basically be a continuation. This would be a sequel to whatever that was.
Not really. I mean, I guess it is because it's an Evil Dead movie, but it's not connected in any way, really, other than
It's not
the
connected,
Deadites.
but also not technically disconnected. Like, there's no Ash
Right.
connection in this. There is a weird Ash cameo in the 2013 movie, but it's literally like him by himself in a post-credit scene saying "groovy" or something. Like that's the cameo.
Huh.
Like, it has nothing to do with the movie. But they're also, I think they're wise in that all you need is somebody to come across the Necronomicon, unleash the evil, Deadites and murder happens, and you're still within canon. Like, you're not like
Right.
messing anything up. Like I said, there is some like a little bit of like you hear some, I guess, kind of backstory, or not backstory, but extra details about Necronomicon and the fact that it's one of 3 volumes, I think, was.
I think it was 4, but I could be wrong.
So that kind of adds to the lore, maybe. But then again, maybe they touched on something like that in the series. But I don't think they're necessarily outside of canon. They're just
Right.
instances of Deadites running amok and killing some people. Although the 2013 one, though, felt like a remake in that it's in a cabin. It's in kind of the cabin. It looks like the cabin.
Right.
And it's a group of like college kids, and yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, and it does like repeat some things, like the sister locked in the cellar. I think it was the sister. But the end is
Yeah.
different, and it's like they've already remade that movie at least once. Evil Dead 2 is just a remake of Evil Dead 1.
Right, that's true.
It plays
Yeah.
out different. It's like, let's do that again, except comedy this time.
So, how do they ever? I don't really think they do. They never get rid of the Deadites from any of the Evil Dead movies, do they? Or wait, no, the one they do, because they have like some weird vortex crap, huh?
It just depends. Like, if we're talking the movies, I guess some of them get like destroyed in some way, but the movies usually just end with Ash getting teleported somewhere and not really
Yeah.
resolving anything.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the joke with his character, He's not a good protagonist.
Right. Well, you know,
2013 did have a big showdown with a weird ultimate demon or some weird creature, and it was raining blood, and it was pretty cool. I don't know how much sense it made, but
right. Okay. Well, the way this one seems, and I was thinking back about it, kind of the way that other things had seemed to me, that it's just like they're just gonna be there forever. You know what I mean? You
Right.
unleashed them, and now they're here, and that's it. That's all there is.
Because you
kind
can't
of.
really kill them.
Right, exactly.
It's like a puzzle box.
Yeah.
It's just there now, and it'll summon the Cenobites. So get used
Just
to
don't.
it.
Yeah, you just don't touch it. You know.
Paul says Ash is now a New York hot dog vendor. No, he's the pizza papa. Get it right.
He's a pizza papa, yeah.
Swapped his chainsaw for out
Pizza balls.
songs. I think Bruce Campbell doesn't want to do them. He's too old. Like I think he physically doesn't want to do them, or maybe he just feels like, dude, I'm too old to be Ash. What are you talking about? We can't keep doing this. I really like where the series went. The Ash vs. Evil Dead series was great. And they had a couple trip ups, but otherwise it was overall great. But the way I say, or the reason I say I think he just doesn't want to do him because he's too old, is he said he'd voice Ash in a cartoon series or something, in an animated series. I'd be all for some Evil Dead animated series if it was well done. That could be fun. But he'd still voice the character. I think Ash is such a like slapstick character. He doesn't want to keep playing it. We don't have to keep talking about this. We should move on. Paul says nobody has a strong enough chin to replace him.
Only Jay Leno.
He
Jay
does have a
Leno's
voice.
even older.
You're right. I didn't recognize him, but he does have a cameo by way of voice. He has a voice cameo. There's a recording played, and I didn't recognize him, but apparently he's one of the voices on this recording. So, gotta have him in there somewhere.
Right.
That almost feels less weak than a random like cut to him standing in darkness after the credits saying groovy. It's like that has nothing to do with the movie, you know. Jesse, anything else you've been consuming you want to mention? Sorry we went on so long about that.
I don't remember what I talked about last week. That's one of the problems of getting old like Ash. Yeah, so I finished Hunters on Amazon. So I don't know if I talked about that or not. It was a good series. It was interesting, and the series is over in 2 seasons. So that's kind of nice, and unusual that you wrap up a show in boom boom 2 seasons.
Right.
And it leaves it in a nice place. It leaves it in a place where you're like, man, I could really go for some more. And so it's probably the best possible ending in that particular scenario. I don't know. And it's just bonkers. It's this whole alternate fiction about the Nazis, of course.
Paul says, I've been yelling it from the rooftops. Give me animated horror. The possibilities are freaking endless. I think if it's...
Anime.
That's what I was saying. Think anime like Akira, or anytime they do like the weird, grotesque, like, especially with Deadites, the way in anime they can do weird, grotesque body horror and stuff. Man.
Yeah.
That'd be great. And it doesn't have to look like anime style. That's just an example of like animation can do horror well. They just don't often do it. At least not, outside of Japan, it seems.
The only other thing I can really say is I had a con this past weekend or 2 weekends ago. Paul had a con 2 weekends ago. So yeah, I think the con I went to it was nice. It was successful, and I heard good things about Grand Comic Con as well. So I don't know if we talked about that last week or not.
I don't know what we talk about ever anymore.
Was it Doctor Who? What are we even doing here? Who is this stream for?
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh no, oh no.
We don't know gets about target audiences.
No.
It's almost like we just make this up as we go along.
That'd be weird.
But if we didn't make it up as it went along, we'd probably have to... No, we're not big enough. We're not in any unions. I tried to segue into the writer's strike. But we're not from LA. We're not part of any unions, or at least related to this. So this would not affect us either way. I'm going to start writing.
Be right. So mainly right now, There's so many right puns. So right now, the main concern is like all of the writing that happens for shows that are like kind of daily or work daily, anyways. So we're already seeing blackouts on shows like the late night shows and like Saturday Night Live, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so on the 2nd, I think it started, May 2nd, the writer's strike went into effect. And I've seen the conflicting numbers. One article said like 11,000. Another one said like over 20,000 writers that are part of the WGA, Writers Guild of America, are on strike. And yeah, you can see that immediately in the Saturday Night Live's going off air, or they're going to do a rerun. All the daily type, the daily late night type shows, the stuff that has writers that you see immediately, obviously, those are going off air, running a reruns, whatever they're doing. Because Paul, by the way, following up on the con thing, Paul's burnt out from his con.
Who is this stream for? It's for Paul, and he's always busy.
Right. Are you still there, by the way, Melanie?
Yes, I'm sorry. I muted myself and I forgot to unmute it.
Oh, it's okay. I just want to make sure, if I lost you, that's not fun.
For stuff like Saturday Night Live, aren't the actors the writers, I thought?
No, they have writers. And even if the actors were writers, if they were writers, they'd probably also have to be members of the WGA. I would think. I could be wrong.
So then would they be able to act as long as they didn't write the bits themselves?
Yeah, but nobody can write them. And if somebody's stepping in to write them, then they're a scam.
Yeah, you're crossing the line. I know, like
Right.
Colbert. I think that's part of the reason that he's, not doing shows is because sure he could write his own stuff, but like he also wants it. It's a bad look for him if he continues the show without his writers, because then it looks like he's not supporting his writers.
Yeah.
Yeah, for weird situations like that where they could technically probably keep the show going. A lot of times, like, they also probably respect their writers, and they're like, yeah, no, out of solidarity, like actors will show up to the protests as well. They don't have to, but they'll show up to like support the writers because they're like, hey, I have nothing to say if you're not getting paid to do your job,
Right.
and whatnot.
Most actors
So-
realize that literally there's nothing for them to do without writers, and nothing good to do if there aren't good writers.
Right.
Right. And so, yeah, we're seeing that immediately. But if people remember, and Paul pointed out the year, I think it was, didn't they learn last time? The last writer's strike shut everything down. 2007, 2008 or so?
Was that when Save the Cheerleader, Save the World just went flop?
Yeah, it
because
ruined that show. That show
Yeah,
went off.
yeah.
Yeah.
Heroes
Never recovered.
so hard. So yeah, like last time, the effects in terms of like scripted television, that's bigger productions, TV series, movies, not just TV. Probably about 6 months we're gonna start. Regardless how long this lasts, we're gonna if it lasts any amount of time. The last one lasted like 100 days. We'll start feeling it as viewers. We'll start noticing like, oh, there ain't crap for new shows going on. Or
You know what'll happen though? It's the same thing that happened last time. If they're smart, they'll follow this. And I hesitate to say it because he's a garbage human, apparently. Remember, Joss Whedon kind of innovated by creating like was it Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog? Like he did that in the during the writer's strike, and so like that is part and parcel one of the conflicts, and it was a conflict back then, but it's even more so now. Like everything is streaming now, like if they aren't getting a piece of the streaming pie, then they really are getting hosed.
Oh yeah, and Paul points out, especially depending on how long this will hit in the fall, which is like the fall lineup, which is always a big thing for new shows. he says it'll get delayed, and reality shows will be more prevalent.
That's what happened last time. That's what will happen this time. But what I like my point was, I think that we're going to see a lot of like sudden internet stuff. Like, listen, if you guys aren't going to pay us in Hollywood, we'll make our money elsewhere.
Right.
Interesting.
Well, that's better anyway, in my opinion.
So, before we dive too much further into that, what do these writers even want? What do they want?
Money.
Yes. So I looked it up.
Maybe
and,
respect.
Yeah, that's nice too.
this-
Yeah.
What do striking Hollywood writers want? A look at demands. This is from apnews.com. So yeah, 11,000. This article says 11,500 members went on strike. So yes, increased pay. They're seeking higher compensation for writers across the board. Although there were more jobs available to WGA members than ever before because of the proliferation of streaming services, pay for most writers is down. 10 years ago, 33% of TV writers were paid the minimum rate. Now, apparently that's at about like 49%, so about half just make the minimum rate, whatever that is. And then accounting for inflation, writer pay has declined 14% in the last 5 years. The median weekly writer-producer pay is down 23%. And writers say many of their members aren't even making a living wage. I mean, join everyone.
welcome to the club. Yeah.
Jasper, what's going on? We're just running through the writer's strike, talking a little bit about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Keeping it really light and jovial tonight.
Right. The other thing, and this ties into pay, is better residuals. And this has got to be a big chunk for at least writers that like have been around long enough to know the difference.
Yeah.
But for more than half a century, residuals have been a foundational way for writers to make money, but streaming has upended those payments. Writers used to be handsomely compensated anytime their work went into syndication or was sold for overseas territories. Reruns meant a big payday. Which, yeah. But now, series and films often simply land on a streaming service and stay there. And apparently streaming services also generally don't share viewership data with filmmakers and writers, meaning writers don't know how valuable their work has been. So yeah, to replace back-end residuals, the Writers Guild is seeking more upfront fees. Yeah, that is kind of like... It sounds like then they just don't get residuals from stuff that's streaming.
Man, whoever wrote Friends and The Office should be just making bank.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right, because...
Well, the person who wrote The Office was British, so, you know.
Yeah, but there's like... This, I guess that brings me to the next thing. Staffing requirements. Oh, there's a couple ones. Is this the one about mini rooms? Okay. The union shows want, and this one's actually kind of interesting because I don't have a concept of how many writers typically work on a show. I know a lot of comedy shows and stuff have like the writer's room. There's lots of writers, right?
Right.
But the union wants, this is still from that AP article, the union wants TV shows to staff a certain number of writers for a period of time. At issue is the rising practice of mini rooms, where only a handful of writers are working on a series. Such writer rooms are often employed during development before a show is greenlit. That means writers can be working on a series that doesn't get picked up for as much as a year after they worked on it, or not at all. So yeah, they could work on a show and then it might not even get picked up, or it might get picked up like a year later.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that would affect how much they get paid. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The process has circumvented some of the protections the Writers Guild members Okay. The process circumvented some protections the Writers Guild members have from being overworked and understaffed. The use of mini rooms accelerated during the pandemic, blah, 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 blah. So basically, like, understaffed. It's just, I don't, like, how many people do you need in a writer's room, do you think? I guess it depends on the show. I never really thought about, I don't know, you think about, when I think of a writer, I always think of, like, a person writing a thing. But I know, like, TV series have a room of people that pitch ideas and whatever.
Well, you think about all the writers that went into like Buffy and Angel, and a lot of those writers went on to do really awesome stuff, you know, even beyond Joss, you know, like what Cabin in the Woods was predominantly one of the other writers that worked on Angel and Buffy.
And I think it would also depend on, like, who the writers are themselves, and especially how well they work together. Because if you've got maybe just like two or three, but they're really good and they riff off each other really well, you know, then that might be all you needed. But if that's not the case, then maybe you need some more to get good stuff to, you know, poop out.
So Paul says 5 writers minimum. I think that's what they're looking for, is 5 writers minimum. Paul, Paul Paul says, I have a few associates who are livid with the contracts. Since the numbers are hidden, they haven't gotten a residual check on a show they worked on years ago that's on multiple streaming services. If this were cable, they would be getting paid per airing per network. I mean, it's kind of in a way like music. Like before, I don't know, maybe it's different because I don't know how radio, like residuals from radio play goes. But yeah, every time the show would air in a rerun, they'd get a chunk of money. Meanwhile, a show can be streamed 100,000 times and they don't get anything from that because the streaming networks don't have to. I don't know, man. It's that does seem like a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably been a serious issue for a long time, but now like it's gotten to the point where streaming services are so prolific.
Yeah.
I mean, the bubble's bursting. So
right. And streaming services are weird anyway. Because like look at they cancel shows that people like, and I don't understand any of they need to be more open, I think, with their workings so that people know what's going on and what to expect.
yeah,
They gotta stop canceling good shows. God dang it.
How does it work? Like for writers who work for, say, Netflix or whatever, like they'll get no residuals because Sweet Tooth is literally on Netflix.
right.
And it's an exclusive or it's an original. So it's probably not going to show up on cable or any other, like it's not going to show up on any other channel because essentially Netflix is the channel.
Yeah. And I think Netflix, I think the people that work directly with Netflix, they do it different. And it's more like, we're going to give you this big deal for multiple things. It seems like how they go at stuff. You know what I mean?
I think for maybe, yeah, some of the bigger names, but I think it's the thing of like, it's all about the upfront pay then,
Right, yeah, yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
more like a movie then. Like you get most of your money from the initial job.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless you're like Robert Downey Jr. or something. And
Yeah,
can
no
command
kidding.
Some of the back end, but that's, I think, reserved for like power users.
Right.
Shorter, sorry. Okay.
Nothing?
I heard a noise. Shorter exclusivity deals. Many of the rules around TV writing are also based on a now increasingly outdated model. Writers might have once expected to spend almost a year working on a 22 to 25 episode season of broadcast TV. Now the average season is much shorter. Popular shows like Bridgerton might have only 8 episodes. Not only does it diminish writers' per episode pay, it can limit them from working on other programs if they're tied to longer terms of exclusivity. Yeah, that's a raw deal. If like you just have to like sign an exclusivity deal, but like you're only working on a show that is going to have 8 episodes a season.
Yeah. Like
Hello, Misty. Thanks for
you got to
stopping
keep
by.
hi. You got to keep your mustache on for like 3 other shows that you're doing. That's just not fair.
Nah, they'll just CGI.
Oh, yeah.
Here's another one. I'm not surprised this one popped up. This seems like maybe the newest issue in terms of like the writers, what the writers are upset about, or whatever. assurance on AI. Writers are also increasingly concerned, again, this is still from the AP article. Uh, Writers are also increasingly concerned that producers will use artificial intelligence to write scripts or at least fill in the blanks on unfinished screenplays. Um, Blah, blah, blah. In some cases, it may be a useful tool, but the Writers Guild wants production companies to agree to safeguards to its usage. There's not a whole lot more said about that.
See, I was going like Dr. Horrible's sing along blog is like best case scenario for a writer's strike. In my mind, this chat GPT situation was maybe one of the worst case scenarios. You know, like worst case scenario from the last one was like, we got a lot more reality television. You know, let's just throw things at the wall. You know, like what are they going to do to fill in content is use the API or, you know, use AI to create an episode. Like everybody's doing that now, you know, like podcast. That's the big experiment is like, I'm going to try it out for my podcast. Now my podcast is written and done by an AI voice and yada, yada, yada. So I would not be surprised that they try a exclusively AI episode or something.
And as in terms of, I mean, it's still going to take, because, you know, as good as AI is, you know how AI is. Like, even though ChatGPT is amazing, it's also, like, not that great in terms of, like, if you're trying to get it to spit out a full script of something, it's going to get sloppy. So it would still require some human guidance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing
bad
with
at
AI
jokes. It's terrible at jokes.
Right. The thing with AI is, and this actually might be fine for money people, you know, for executives who don't have a burning passion to tell a story. They're just trying to sell time slots or whatever it is. AI is just an amalgamation of all of the stuff it's been trained on. I mean, you could say that's true of like human written fiction anyway, but it's especially true where you're just going to get what you already got just mashed together in somewhat random ways.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that's interesting about the AI, because I was talking to a guy that deals with this kind of thing, he pointed out something that I didn't really think about or realize is already just inherent in the AI, is that it scrapes stuff that's already biased. So it's got a bias. It's an echo chamber.
yeah.
So if you're not really specific with your prompts, you could, like, for example, I asked ChatGPT to write me a series of 5 haikus about social media, and that was all I gave it. And so it gave me 5 haikus about social media. Do you suppose it was pro social media or anti social media, those haikus?
I'm going to guess anti.
They were anti. They were biased against social media because I didn't give it that flavor. I didn't ask it for a specific thing. So what does social media think about social media? Social media thinks social media is awful and it's ruining the world. And so that's the kind of haikus that I got. And so you start thinking about like also the fact that it's just going to eventually be scraping itself because we're going to start using it more. So it's going to start taking the data that it already created and now creating new things out of that.
Right. And we tried to get it to do some things, like make a funny, whatever, like slogan type thing. And it gave us like 4 or 5. And then we're like, okay, no, that's not what we want. Be more like irreverent. And it gave us the same 4 or 5 things, except that it changed like a word or added something or subtracted something. And then we were like, okay, no, not that. Try this. And again, it was like the same every single time. It was like the same 4 or 5 things, just tweaked a little bit. So I don't know. I don't think it really knows all that much, honestly.
Yeah, it's not imaginative. Like, and it's only as imaginative as the stuff it's trained on, and then you're only ever going to get stuff based on what it's trained on, you know. With any AI stuff, this goes for AI art. AI music is becoming. I see a lot more headlines about AI music, so that's going to start ruffling feathers real soon. Um, AI writing, anything related to that, it's gonna fall into, even if it's super passable, like Stable Diffusion, like it can do photorealistic pictures of people, and they can be very striking images. It looks great. Or, or if the music stuff's good, I imagine the music stuff's good. The music, I mean, audio generation, I think would be hard, but like if you're talking music writing, they already have AI that does that. That I think would be easier to train a model to do, but it could probably be passable, but it's gonna get real old real fast to people because
Yeah.
it's just an amalgamate. There's like no actual new creativity going into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get too concerned about that aspect of it, like AI creating things and putting humans out of creative jobs, because like the computer's only so creative. Like it'll be fine until
Yeah.
everybody's like, "Oh, this is boring. Everything's just."
Yeah.
I
The
mean,
personality is what seals the deal.
right, right.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I mean, it's impressive that it can do these things, but I wonder why so many scientists and whatever people are freaking out. And they're like, "Stop now! You don't know what you're doing." And I'm like, "But why?" I mean, maybe I guess if you turn it to something else, it could be
Yeah.
dangerous. But with the things that everybody's focusing on now, it's not gonna, I don't think, make a big difference. But then, yeah, I guess if you're talking about, putting together enzymes and creating new molecules and creatures or something, maybe don't let them do that. Might be a good idea. But with artistic stuff, I don't think that it's gonna accomplish much of anything besides becoming maybe a better tool for people to use.
Interesting. Paul has. Yeah, I think that's why I specified the creative things, because in terms of like being able to whip up new ways to synthesize chemicals, both good and bad, or new ways to manipulate people through propaganda. Like I think there's a lot of potential there for sure. But in terms of creativity, I'm not too worried about creative stuff. Plus, man, it's the thing. If you see this stuff and you don't immediately think, "Wow, how can I use this to make my stuff better?" or "Wow, this is going to make things so much easier," or if it doesn't start giving you ideas, man, you're not a creative person. You're just, I don't know, you're just doing a job. You're just pushing pencils anyway.
Right.
In which case, sure, be worried it's going to take your job, because that's all it does too. Somewhat informed pushing of pencils. Or
It's like Minecraft, like Minecraft is a fun game to a point, but the real fun is in being creative within the game.
right.
Yeah.
I'm also super.
And that is also a tool because, there are countries whose media is censored, but in Minecraft you can write a book with any information you want and leave it in a library, in a public library, in a public world, and other people from censored countries can come in there and read it, which I think is fascinating that they do that
Yeah.
to get around, the limits in their countries. That's great.
Yeah,
And,
Right.
there's Minecraft servers for stuff like that.
and AI isn't gonna think of up something like that. That takes people.
Right. AI might make it easier.
Right.
Like, hey, can you take this text and put it into a Minecraft book for me?
Right.
I was on I know we just derailed into AI, but I was on Facebook the other night, and I scrolled by, and I seen 2 posts in a row from Facebook groups that I'm a part of, and one was a musician or a film composer, or I don't want to say wannabe, a hopeful film composer. I don't know, whatever. Somebody who is interested in that, because that's what the group's for. Worried about AI is taking. They're gonna take AI's. They're gonna take our jobs. But
I
and I
know,
was reading
man.
through some of the comments, and I wanted to comment, and I was like, I'm not. He's being worried. Whatever.
We need to find a derogatory nickname for it. Like the go back thing.
Right.
Open AI
And then-
borders.
And then I scrolled, and the very next post was a podcast editor talking about how she lost her. She thinks a client just replaced her with AI. I was like, 2 in a
No.
row, and I read the thing, and basically the client had sent her a thing and is like, don't worry about editing in this or whatever, blah blah blah, just throw on the whatevers. And it does sound like a maddening situation, but the person who posted it, made the post, is like, they listened to it and they're like, it sounds terrible, the edit's rough, it doesn't sound good, there's like, you can hear the cuts, all the silences have been taken out totally, like too much. And I can see, like, I've had clients talk about, like, well, what if we can just do this with AI? And it's like, if
you want it to sound bad, go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
You get what you pay
yeah.
for, or don't pay for.
I wouldn't blame. That's not the AI's fault. That's somebody abusing that's the client. That's a bad client. That is a client who does not understand what you actually do. If they think,
Right.
because AI is not to that point. It's not to the point where it can replace a human editor if the human editor's doing a good job. 'Cause
Right.
It doesn't understand the context of these sounds, and it doesn't. Whatever.
Or the sounds, or know that picking your nose is inappropriate, so you maybe should cut the camera away when somebody starts
Right.
doing that in the middle of a freaking podcast. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, I was talking to Jesse about that before the show a little bit. Autopod. Useful tool is not going to reduce the time it takes to edit a video down to seconds, because you still have to watch that thing to see what this useful tool did.
Right.
Right.
Chances are it didn't do what you would have done.
Right.
Anyway. I get coders being worried.
Oh, sure.
My concern,
There's
though,
legitimate concerns.
yeah, I get, like, it in certain fields, I understand it, and I think audio editors, stuff like that. It's obviously it impacted that lady already.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, coders, I understand them being worried, but also, like, if everyone in the world just then relied on AI to tell you the code, what are we not going to ever invent any new coding languages or make any? I guess the AI would make the improvements. I don't know. I feel like at a certain point you still need that human creativity.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the human brain is just doing the same thing that AI is, taking all the information and jumbling it up and being like, okay, how can I apply this? Like, you still need that little bit of creativity for occasionally when somebody's like, yeah, but what if this crazy thing, and it revolutionizes stuff, right?
Right.
Like Into the Spider-Verse, they use machine learning and whatnot to create a whole new animation engine to make Into the Spider-Verse maybe the best Spider-Man movie ever. Fight me.
I agree, but what I'm thinking is, if you're a coder and this can do that, then why don't you take that and be like, okay, this is what I want, you do that, and I'm going to work on this part that you can't do because it's not there yet, and so you're just saving me so much time getting to this point. Why don't, I would think that's what you would use it for, you know what I mean?
Right. And
For
coders
foundational
are worried
stuff.
They're going to lose jobs because then it makes coding more accessible to the layperson, which is true. And also, like, that cuts a lot of your work time out, right? Like, essentially you want to be able to get through stuff faster, but that also means less pay if you're blowing through projects super quick.
Like copywriters and some of these social media virtual assistants, I could see it being an issue for those people who make money that way, Like if that's your job, ChatGPT can do some of that. I think it replaces writers, and we kind of talked about this already. Until AI gets good at editing, which it is not good at editing yet. That's where the human touch is. Until it gets good at that, you're just taking this job and moving it over here. Like a good writer now just needs to be a better editor, so that they can still do their craft, but maybe apply it to what this AI has generated for, I don't know, copywriting or like show notes for a podcast, that kind of thing. Like, that's the stuff that I think if you're making your bread and butter from that kind of thing, you should be a little bit more worried.
Right.
I think, I think that we're all worried, and maybe I'm wrong, and some of it is justified, but every time that something new comes out, like the Steam engine, everybody always freaks out that it's the end. We're not going to be able to. No, well, there's going to be a boost in production because you're going to have to work either harder or smarter to produce more to be able to make what you need to survive, which sucks. But I mean, in the long run, I guess it's better for everybody if there's more. I don't really know. I have issues with all that anyway. I think we should still be hunter gatherers, but as far as our system that we have set up, I guess it's better that way.
Well, that's exactly the point of like when my initial arguments about when people are upset about AI art was, well, it's the death of art. It was
Right.
like, just like the player piano or the phonograph was the death of music, or movies were the death of, I don't know, theater
Books.
maybe.
Oh, okay.
Books, sure.
Well, I
sure.
mean,
Any
to be fair,
significant technological improvement. Photoshop, I'm sure, was the death of whatever. I'm sure people were freaking out about Photoshop,
Right.
graphic designers and stuff. When in fact, like, that became then, like, the tool, like, the ultimate tool to, like...
It just pushed everything forward. You just had to be better at whatever it was. Like, Photoshop's just going to really put the photographers out of business. No, it just gave the photographers more tools. Mm-hmm. You had to know how to use them.
Right.
sorry. Paul commented that it sounds like the fruit picker argument, but there's still plenty of fruit picking jobs. Not only are there still fruit picking jobs, but they're still underpaid and they still go to minorities. So,
Right.
They should really writer's
The
strike.
point is, the fruit picker job kind of sucks.
It does.
And we kind of take advantage of the people who get stuck doing those jobs.
We do.
He said something that initially I was like, I don't understand the point, but it got me thinking. He said, speaking as a layperson, because I said, a layperson could maybe do some of the code. He says, I don't want the code. And that's got me thinking of like Descript, since I relate it to audio editing and podcast editing, since that's what I do. Like Descript. For half a second, I was a little nervous. And then I played with it, and I was like, first off, it's not great. It's not perfect. And I spent more time fixing the edits it made than what I would have just done on my own with manually. But also, people, like, even using Descript or using AI or using, Autopod, the video editing thing we mentioned kind of, there's still a ton of stuff that a person has to do. You still have to wrangle that. And for the most part, if you find somebody who's willing to pay you to do a thing, they don't want to have anything to do with it. They don't want to touch it.
Right.
And
right.
even with the AI stuff, they would, if they were to totally replace you, they'd have to start doing stuff. And I think people initially will be like, oh, AI can do everything, until they figure out, like, but I'm still doing stuff.
Right,
How do I
exactly.
just hire somebody to do this?
Yeah, it's still a time suck.
Yeah. So it'll come around. It'll come back around,
I think that the coding thing might be different though, because someday I'm gonna build a new my face twit or something, and you're gonna be able to put your own code in to personalize your page like you could with MySpace. So everybody's gonna want to know how to do it.
My face twit.
Yep.
And with the AI, they won't have to even know how to write that code. They'll be able to tell it what to do. Done.
Yep.
My face twit.
Yes. So what were we supposed to be talking about this time? Is this it? Is this what we were talking about?
Yeah, I think we did it.
Writer strike.
We did it. We struck gold. We struck the strike.
AP News also on May 3rd said writer strike looks to be a long fight as Hollywood braces. Okay.
Yeah.
The only Superman Legacy script, which is the next live action Superman movie they have, DC, Warner Brothers has in whatever. James Gunn submitted the script before the Writers Guild strike.
Yes, reasonable gun reform.
Wow, that's not at all what we're talking about. Oh, wait, it's Gunn.
It's the gun.
Reform.
It's the James Gunn. It's the DC
Yeah.
reasonable gun reform.
I see.
I forgot.
That reminds me of that John Stewart clip. So good. But that's not what we're talking about. So let's move on. James Gunn.
DC's
There it
gun
goes. There it
reforms.
is.
There it is.
So, whatever. The writer's strike won't affect the current progress of Superman Legacy. Apparently, he's currently meeting with talents for the casting of the movie. And it's set to, it looks like, whatever. There's still, production is expected to begin early 2024. It's just on track for its currently scheduled 2025 theatrical release date.
Who are they casting? Why aren't they having Henry Cavill? Henry Cavill should always be Superman.
We've covered this on the news, so you don't listen to our show, even when you're on it.
Toss
no,
a coin to your Witcher.
They're basically.
Oh, wait.
It's basically a new. That universe is dead, kind of. After the Flash, that universe is dead, and probably after something else, that universe is dead. But it's close to dead. There's going to be a new everything.
Are you saying this was another gun killing?
Oh, yeah. Well,
Not at all. I do have one other DC movie-related thing. DC animated movie, because they still pump those things out. That infers a negativity thing, but not necessarily. I don't know. I haven't watched a whole lot. Anyway, DC animated movie Justice League War World gets an R rating.
ooh.
So another DC animated movie with an R rating. Apparently, Batman Gotham by Gaslight, Batman the Killing Joke. That was a terrible movie. Horrible. I am curious about Gotham by Gaslight because I liked that Elseworlds tale. That was good.
Right.
Injustice and Justice League Dark had all also received R ratings. It is still a little surprising to hear when they're like, a Justice League animated movie, rated R.
Right, yeah.
At
So
least
in
the
those
Batman
ones,
kind of makes sense.
yeah, I was gonna say in those ones, will Batman do that thing that he won't do?
Batman won't let that happen. Oh, wait, that's Ryan.
No, listen, Harley Quinn is firmly in the R-rated territory, and he can't even do that on that show.
Okay.
But they could show a fake porn star cosplay versions of Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn doing that.
They're not heroes.
You're right. Exactly.
true.
You're exactly
Heroes
right.
don't do that, yeah.
You're exactly right. Harley Quinn is good. Surprisingly good. Terrible sometimes, but surprisingly good. That was it for my news. I kind of blew through those last ones since we got derailed by AI.
Well, that is amazing.
It is. You want
It's
to know
some
what
amazing news. Yes.
else? Okay, I'll tell you what else is amazing. 3D printing is amazing because there's been growing interest in integrating technology into the human body. And researchers have been searching for long-lasting, non-invasive, and effective connections. And they think they may have found a promising avenue to achieve that using 3D-based or laser-based 3D printing. So they can grow flexible, conductive wires inside the body, they hope. And they started off testing some mouse brain tissues, and they printed the ink on it and made connections, and it worked, and it sent signals back and forth. So then they decided they needed to try inside of a living creature. So they adjusted the ink to make sure it wasn't toxic at all, which you'd think they would have done that in the first place, but they didn't. But now they did.
Right. You think the initial test, they'd be like, let's not start with the toxic stuff because there's not really any reason that we'd be ever using that in a body.
Right. So they made it non-toxic, and then they mixed it in with some bacterial paste, and then fed it to some roundworms. And then once it's in the body, I I forget how deep it can be. It doesn't really matter, but like so many centimeters or something that this will work. And then they use the lasers to harden it or like, affix it into the shapes that they want it to be in. And in this case, it didn't really take just because mostly I don't know what they didn't want to anesthetize them or something, but the worms were moving around. So it made it hard and to get the shapes to form the way they wanted it to. And, so it wasn't totally connected the way they wanted it to be, but they still, it was in there. They got it to harden. They just couldn't get it to harden into the shape they wanted it to be. So they're pretty sure that was some work though, that it'll work fine. And so yeah, so they're going to start working on that, building electronics in your tissues. Which the plans for it would be stuff like computer brain interfacing. And which is crazy, and I know Randy is scared of all that.
Yeah, it took my brain.
And then
took my memories.
And then other like neuromodulation implants and other bioelectric stuff, like for if you have a limb that's gone and you get a prosthetic, then they can connect it to your actual nerves and stuff. So that's exciting, huh?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Especially if you're from the 10th planet.
Yeah, well, we have to find it first.
You're right. Mondas.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I was like, wait, what?
You will be upgraded.
Right.
That reminds me, just a little bonus one right quick. Recently, they figured out the Mayan calendar. They didn't really understand it before, but it's like 189 days. And then finally they figured out, after, I don't know how long they've had it, but all of the planets and mostly just the planets, but there's other things outside the solar system too, all fit into rotations that break down to fit into 189 day chunks. So like, if you take 189 days and flip it out for 45 years, all of them fit like nicely, like 7 times around in that 108 or 45 years in the 189 day cycle. So yeah, that's what it is. It's that you just take that thing and you flip it out for 45 years and then they all fit in there nicely. So
how would you summarize what that means in one sentence?
If you repeat the calendar that they got for long enough, it includes the full orbits of all of the planets and comets that they were aware of.
Okay. Yeah.
Which
so
is
the Mayan
pretty
calendar,
amazing. That is pretty amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's
more amazing than people thought.
yeah.
It is more amazing than people thought.
So
That's it.
How'd they figure that out? I mean, I could
Because-
watch the sky for like
Yeah,
3
they didn't have
generations,
TV.
right?
They
And, like, take notes.
Right.
Where's great grandpa's notes? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Weird.
yeah.
They didn't have
For-
TV. Is that what you said?
Yeah, most of human history, I
makes
mean,
sense.
some people had books, but most people didn't even have books. All they really had to do was invent stuff and watch the sky, or carve some big elaborate staircase out of a single tree. People are like, oh, it's so amazing. I can't believe they did that. Well, they were bored. What else were they going to do,
They didn't have anything else to do. That's a good point.
I've been teaching, like, this is tangentially related. I've been teaching Aboriginal dot painting in class this week, and you think about like that kind of thing. It's like, well, what did they do before? Well, like the Aboriginal dot paintings weren't originally paintings. They were literally just like things that the Aborigines were doing in the sand. And then one day, like in the 60s, some white guy comes to Australia and is like, if you did that in paint, it would last longer and we could sell it. And so that's like where dot paintings from Australia came from. It's like, oh, we could make this more permanent. And that's like part and parcel of how their like mythology comes from. Like, so we talk about myths a lot, and it's like, Australian myths are crazy. Like, there's a snake that created everything. Like, there's a snake that created the waterways, and the waterways are what created the civilizations that people gathered around, and yada yada yada. It's all snakes, man.
Cool.
That's what happens when
That's a
you live on
knife.
That's what happens when you live on an island that just wants to murder you every day.
Right,
Yeah.
and then the
Sure,
Brits
once-
send more murderers to that murder island.
Right.
One of my favorite Australia things is when they tried to kill off the emus or ostriches, whichever it is, I can't remember.
Oh,
And they started a war with them, and they lost.
I was gonna say, good luck fighting those things. Talk about murder, like that. That place has got animals that will not be stopped.
Right?
That is crazy. Like, military, wipe out these animals.
Yeah.
We
Good luck with
lost,
them
sir.
kangaroos. They are mean.
Yep.
You have a Tasmanian devil. That's a thing. That's a real animal. Drop bears. There are drop bears.
That's
Top
not
bears are
real.
Dang spiders and whatnot over there that are crazy.
They do have bears that'll give you gonorrhea, though, so be careful.
That sounds like a drop bear.
That's
Forget about cocaine bear. I'm gonna watch out for gonorrhea bear. That's like the worst episode of Care Bears ever. Do not meet that Care Bear stare.
Nope.
wow. This conversation took a turn.
It really did. Jerry the Gnome, that's what we were amazed by. Gonorrhea bear. Drop cocaine bears, yeah. Back to cocaine bear. I didn't mention this, but legit in the news, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's a sequel. They found a storage container in the I don't know, like if it was a harbor or just in the ocean or whatever, but they found like a storage container full of cocaine because dolphins were high.
Yeah.
Cocaine dolphin.
Cocaine dolphin, yeah.
Hey, Jerry the Gnome. So we were amazed about basically 3D printed, how would you put it? Circuitry for your body in a way, I
Yes.
guess?
Yes. 3D printing inside living tissue.
And the Mayan calendar was super complex and actually like took into account a lot more, I don't know.
All of the
Planet
planets and things that they knew about all fit into the calendar if you kept repeating it for 45 years. And they're in there actually because I guess it's like different colors. I don't know. You can look it up. If it's just you have to spread it out real far.
I also wonder how many 28 days later are in the Mayan calendar then.
Yeah, huh.
Well, what else we got? Anything else? Is that the show?
I think that's the show.
I think that's the show as well.
As far as like upcoming events and whatnot, I actually have an upcoming event this weekend. So we actually have listeners tonight. I'm going to go to Free Comic Book Day, which is this weekend. So
Woo!
go
Where you
get
going?
your free books. Hey, that's some comic book talk, and Jerry the Gnome is here just in time for a little bit of comic book talk. There's
Jerry the Gnome
some
conjures.
free books you should pick up.
Yeah, where are
Yeah.
you going for Free Comic Book Day?
I will
Shop
go to
you gonna be at?
Krypton. I've been going to Krypton for years. There are other places you could go, but if you want to see me, that's where I'll be.
Right,
Okay.
Right.
Q.
And also, if you're not a normal comic book store goer, or even if you are, and you go for Free Comic Book Day, buy a couple comics.
Yeah,
Just
that's
buy
the
a
whole
couple.
point. Is to get you
Or
in
maybe a
there,
trade.
support them.
Because they get a huge influx of people, and like that's part of the thing with Comic Book Day is like bring in new people. So here's a bunch of free comics, but they get a huge influx of people and parents with their kids who are like, what's going on? And they're just like, where's the free comics? And they grab a
Yeah.
bunch of free comics and then they bounce. And
Oh, and parents, be a little discerning about which Free Comic Book Day comics you get, because there are some that are like decidedly not for kids. Don't just take everything. There's a few that you should probably not take.
not all comics are for kids. In fact, the majority of comics don't seem like they're for kids. Keep that in mind. Not all
Well,
video
maybe-
games are for children. In fact, most video games anymore aren't for children. Don't just buy your kids crap and then get upset when it's
Right.
adult. Look into what you're giving your children.
Yeah, and take into account though how mature your children are, because some of us they could handle that.
Melanie, anytime it's like we're like, listen, keep the adult material away from your kids, and Melanie's like, I watched Exorcist when I was 5.
It wasn't Exorcist, first of all. It was Hellraiser, and yes, I was very young. But no, I'm just saying, if all I got ever to do or watch or consume was baby crap, I would be dumb. I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like a lot of my intelligence came from having to experience emotions that I maybe hadn't yet earlier than I otherwise would have from stuff that was challenging to me in different ways. Or remember the cartoons we watched when we were little? Like, when Artex drowns in the swamp of sadness. That was heart-wrenching. I needed that to help mature me as a child. If they wouldn't let me watch that because it was too adult or something, too hard on a kid, that would change who I am as a person. And that's my thing. I think people people don't give kids enough credit for what they can handle, is all I'm saying.
Right, I don't disagree with that. And like the over sanitization of kids material is a thing, but that's kind of another issue, because I feel like it's more parents getting upset with a medium because they got their kids this thing not understanding that medium.
Oh yeah, they just picked up every free comic book day, and then this one is about like a girl finding her sexual identity. Like, oh, okay, well maybe you should have like flipped through it before you just grabbed everything that was free.
What, you mean Sex Criminals isn't for children?
Right, yeah,
I don't
weird.
think that series is probably long over, but that was just the first name that come to mind.
I remember sending my mom, I mean, I didn't go get me this, but it was, Christmas time or something. And I was like, if you want to get me something, you can get me these CDs. Make sure it says explicit material on it, or I don't want it.
Right.
Hey, if you go and see Jesse on Free Comic Book Day, you should buy Tank Monkey from Vorpal Arrow Studios, or you can also get that online. Hey, it's kid friendly.
Hey, it is kid friendly. Hey,
yeah,
you'll have a good time. If I were smart, I would have printed out some more coloring books, but I haven't ordered new coloring books, so I dropped that ball.
That's great.
Boy, you know what? Since I know we have a little bit of crossover listenership here with the You Choose podcast, fun fact, I got my first, I don't know if it's my first, but it's definitely my first in a long time, Facebook content warning, because I was in the chat for the You Choose podcast this Monday, and I said something to the effect of, worst psychic ever, didn't even know that pen knife wielding chimp was a hologram. And apparently that is some kind of hate speech. I even contested it, and they said, we reviewed it, and it still violates our community guidelines. Probably because the pen knife? I don't know.
We reviewed it. It's such crap. It's like no one reviewed
You don't even get a second, like, no, do it again. Put a person in front of it and look at the video and see what I was talking about. I was not talking about a real person. We were talking about a book that is ridiculously old and crazy. They're hologram chimps.
I'm kind of amazed that I haven't just been kicked off of Facebook as many times as I've gotten, slapped on the hand for crap I did like 5 years ago.
Right. Yeah, they will too. They'll randomly pull a post from years back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, anyways, the reason I bring that up is we are kind of in talks to do a crossover again.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Yeah, Melanie.
We had fun last time. And so we might be saying offensive things about holo chimps and psychics with pen knives live.
I think last time was too short. We should make it longer.
Was it?
I thought so.
I felt like it was pretty long, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm not remembering right.
Well, no, they keep their episodes pretty short. So I think it was like we did one Choose Your Own Adventure book, and then we did one GCU style mashup.
Oh,
And
right.
I just, or maybe it's because of me, but like we climbed up onto the tower, and then the next thing you know, like we're dead, and that's it. It just
yeah.
it didn't feel like we got very far.
That's just how those books work.
Oh, okay. I'm just not
Right.
familiar with them, I guess. Okay.
They don't ding you if you say it live. They only criticize the typed word. And Jerry
Well,
the
I
Gnome
mean-
mentioned Catholicism.
Catholicism. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you said it right the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, but did he type it right? I don't think so.
No.
I'm just trying to read it how he typed it.
Catholicism.
I'm not trying to I'm not trying to make fun of the typo. I was just like I said
You
it,
were
and I'm
just
like,
trying
that's
to
not
read it
what
accurately.
says.
Catholicism.
Yeah.
How dare
Sorry.
you talk about that, Jerry the
Jerry
Gnome?
mixed
Catholicism.
double G's. Jerry double G's.
Jerry double cheese. Oh,
You can't hide behind that mask, Mr. Double D's.
Oh, jeez. Oh, geez, with the double
Oh,
D's.
jeez. He is the OG. G to the M to the O to the M-E. Hey, time to go. When that happens,
Yep.
don't invoke
Okay.
holy rollers.
And
What a
out of
fun-
controllers.
What a fun name for not fun people. Hey, so anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I don't think I have anything exciting coming up just yet. Go see Jesse at Krypton Comics on Free Comic Book Day. Tell him Jerry Double G sent you.
Yeah. I'll be the only one that knows what you're talking about.
The only one on Earth. I haven't been to a Free Comic Book Day in a while. I don't show my face in comic shops anymore. Actually,
You don't
there's
show
one
your-
comic shop.
Yeah. You just don't go outside, dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say you just don't leave the house.
Oh, too real?
Secret.
Keep it
Not a
secret.
secret.
Keep it safe.
I went to a drive-in, I'll have you know. You stay in your car, and then it gets dark.
I was saying, you don't go. You didn't have to go outside for that, did you? You just roll the window down. Oh, there is air.
It was a little chilly out, so I didn't
Yeah.
stay outside that long. I do like the drive-in for that, though. I want to hit. I hope they have more good movies during the summer because I do like sitting outside. And the country, there's like nothing around.
You don't want to
And-
see Wizard of
and-
Oz and Twister?
Not really. Honestly, Wizard of Oz would be kind of interesting at a drive-in. I just hate Twister, man. I'm not a fan. But you get us to sit outside in the countryside. There's nothing around, and watch a movie at the same time. That's pretty great. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend.